Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Purdue has won 15 of the last 19 against Illinois, but the odds look quite long as the Boilermakers head to Champaign looking for a sign of life. After a few final thoughts from the debacle at Wisconsin, I'll preview the battle for the cannon, complete with a prediction. I'll then answer a few football questions from you guys before a few thoughts on Purdue basketball. Yes, Purdue basketball. Post Big Ten Media Day, I think a lot of folks are ready to turn the page to basketball. We're not going to do that on the show, but we will start talking about basketball a little bit more here as we're less than a month away from tip-off. Basketball is almost here. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond for all the Purdue basketball talk. We'll be talking Purdue basketball all the way from tip-off to the end of the season. Be sure to follow the show there and subscribe so that you don't miss any of that Purdue basketball content ahead of what's going to be a new-look season, albeit a pretty exciting one for the Boilermakers. I wanted to start with a few final thoughts from Wisconsin. I rewatch all of these games. This one was, not the easiest rewatch. It played out exactly like I thought it did in real time. Purdue fought in the first half, and then the second half just complete fall apart. One thing I've noticed this year, and it's not a good thing to be able to pick up on, when Purdue is getting blown out of games, it leaves its starters in, unlike any team I've ever seen. This was something we talked about after Notre Dame, when Purdue pretty much played all of its starters until the bitter end of the 66-7 defeat. In this game, Purdue put Ryan Brown at quarterback in with 6 minutes to go, or something like that. And the whole first team offensive line was out there. Max Clare was out there. Some of your contributors at wide receiver were out there. With a minute 34 to go, Winston Berglund went down. Now, he's not a starter. He's not. He is a guy who's been playing a little bit more since Kydron Jenkins moved back to edge rusher for the most part. This stuff is avoidable. Ryan Walters even said this week in his Monday press conference that he wasn't sure on the availability for Winston Berglund this week. I mean, you don't need to go full turtle mode, but at some point when you're getting blown out, enough is enough. I fully understand the desire to compete to the final whistle, and I get the sentiment that, hey, the starters got you in this position, they've got to sit in it. But there's a very fine line to walk here, and Purdue might have got hit there. And it's just one player with Winston Berglund, but I just don't understand the thought process there, especially when, clearly depth is not a strength of this group. The tackling in the back end, especially in the second half, just really, really left a lot to be desired. Wisconsin started stacking explosive plays in the second half of that game, and a lot of it came because Purdue wasn't tackling. Wisconsin had a 69-yard touchdown pass come on a 2nd and 18. And the clip has kind of gone across Twitter where, there are 4 Purdue defenders within a 5-10-yard radius of the guy when he catches the ball like the 50. And he goes to the end zone untouched. I know Purdue struggles in zone coverage. It's not used to playing it. But even then, someone has to be able to make a tackle. That's a really, really disappointing part of Purdue's game right now. And, I don't want to say effort is the problem because it's an awfully damning thing to say. But Wisconsin had a 4th and 1 late in the game that it goes for and turns into like a 20-yard touchdown run. Purdue's effort on that, it looked like as soon as it could tell that the running back was going to get the first down that it just let him go. It wasn't a pretty sight. And it does, raise those questions when you're in the stretch that Purdue's in, where you've lost 4 in a row, all of them by 17 or more points, 2 of them in just epic blowout fashion. How much does this team want to be there? How much juice is left? This was a team that came into the season, and I think it felt pretty good. At least the public sentiments from the players in media availability and all of that were that they were excited to prove the media wrong, who picked Purdue 18th out of 18 in the Big Ten. That's got to take a hit. I mean, it's not easy to bounce back from that. I'm very interested to see what Purdue looks like on Saturday when it goes to Illinois in what's really strange. You know, Purdue's on a really incredible streak against Illinois. Purdue's won 15 of the last 19 in this rivalry, going back to 2003 when Purdue started that run. Purdue's won 6 games in a row in Champaign. The last time Purdue lost over there was way back in 2010. That was a game Sean Robinson started at quarterback, I think. We're really dating ourselves here. Danny Hope was just in his second year at that time. Since then, Purdue has won 6 in a row in Champaign, a few real blowouts in there, a few epic games, Daryl Hazel calling the timeouts in overtime, Purdue, Illinois, a couple years ago in a game that helped Purdue win the Big Ten West, a freezing cold day over there. Purdue's had really good success in this series, but Purdue enters this as a 3-touchdown underdog. Numbers 22 as I'm sitting here recording this. Last week's second half just really raises some red flags, and this has to be a game where Purdue shows some life. Wisconsin was a really limited offense, and Purdue's defense was shredded. 589 yards. It is just getting shredded. I think Illinois really wants this game. Ryan Walters has not been particularly shy about throwing shade Illinois' way since he took over at Purdue. I remember last year on one of his radio shows when he was talking about how nice it is to have strong fan attendance at games, because that's not something he had at Illinois. He's talked about the community buy-in, kind of a subtle reference to maybe a lack of that in Champaign. He talked about how the defense was his, not the Illinois defense. That certainly has to leave a mark in the Illinois facility. Aaron Henry was on his defensive staff at Illinois. It adds to this rivalry a little bit. And you've seen Brett Bielema and Ryan Walters go back and forth on Twitter a little bit and things like that. And Purdue splattered Illinois last year. That was a game that was close in the first half, and then Purdue just really pulled away with that thing. No one on Illinois' roster has beaten Purdue. And I think this is a rivalry that has grown in general across sports. You look at basketball, where Purdue and Illinois have been the most successful teams in the Big Ten in basketball over the last 5 years. And the two coaches have some beef here. There have been some good games in this series, but Illinois hasn't won since that rain-soaked, pouring down affair in West Lafayette in 2019, and that's the only win Illinois has had since 2016. Purdue's had some really, really good success, but as we come into this game, the difference in momentum could not feel more drastic. Illinois is off to a nice start this season, 4-1, had a nice road win at Nebraska. They had a home win in week 2 against Kansas that, to be fair, hasn't really aged like Illinois had hoped. Kansas doesn't look to be all that good this year, but so be it. You beat a Power 4 team at home, a really good coach in Lance Leipold, night game, to bring some enthusiasm. Illinois was never going to beat Penn State. It was never in that game, but it didn't get blown out. 21-7, very respectable, just from a scoreboard watching standpoint. Luke Altmaier at quarterback has really raised his level of play this year, completing 70% of his passes, right around 8 yards per attempt. By no means is he an elite, transcendent quarterback, but Illinois doesn't really ask him to be. Illinois asked him to take care of the football, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. That's taking care of the football with 70% completion. It's a very efficient offense so far, and he's got a couple of really good receivers to work with Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. Pat Bryant's been there a while, had 7 touchdown catches last year. Zachary Franklin was one of the most coveted transfers ahead of last season when he went to Ole Miss, ends up at Illinois now, and those two are really dynamic, really forming a nice duo on the outside for the Illini. It's not a dominant run game, which is a little different. What Brett Bielema has always had is a dominant run game. And when Illinois had its nice season a couple years ago, Chase Brown led the way on the ground. But it's been effective enough. Illinois would like to see that improve. Purdue has been vulnerable trying to stop the run, so we'll see if that's something Illinois comes out and tries to do. On the defensive side of the ball, allowing just 14 points a game, 310 yards per game. Pretty good numbers there. By no means is it, the same exact defense that Ryan Walters runs at Purdue, but the similarities are very real. Schematically, it's not tremendously different. Ideologically, it's not tremendously different. As I said, Aaron Henry's the defensive play caller there now, defensive coordinator. He was there under Ryan Walters. They worked together alongside Kevin Kane and some others. Illinois was favored by 2.5 in this game last year in West Lafayette. It's now favored by now over 3 touchdowns in this game. How much of that is about Illinois? How much of that is about Purdue? It's certainly a little bit of both. It's just a really glaring reflection of where Purdue is right now. It has not shown a ton of life in recent weeks. What we've seen 3 weeks in a row now is Purdue compete pretty well for a while. Even last week in the first half, Purdue competed pretty well, and that Wisconsin touchdown going into the half felt kind of demoralizing. You fought back, made it 14-6, couldn't quite punch it in, but you'd move the ball a bit, and then the second half just turned into a boat race, and Purdue got just blown out. You look at Oregon State, where Purdue had some chances early on, it couldn't capitalize on. Kind of the same against Nebraska. Purdue's defense did the ultimate bend, don't break until it couldn't anymore, until it snapped. Is that what we're going to see here? I think that would be encouraging, at least, if you see Purdue come out and give a really nice effort in the first half. I mean, that would at least give you some indication that the team's still fighting, the team's still together. The locker room can't be oblivious to what's going on here. The outside noise is deafening, as they say. There is the outside noise. The fan base isn't happy. The Indy Star is running a piece about Ryan Walters' buyout and what that would look like. That's never a good spot to be in at all. And while I know everyone wants to say they tune out the negatives and all of that, they don't. They can hear it. And we'll see how hard Purdue wants to keep fighting. I don't have a good feeling about this game. Purdue's offense has been so limited that until we see Purdue come out and show that it can do something on offense, I don't know how you can project Purdue to come out and win this game. Purdue's going 3 and out on 45.9% of its possessions. Almost every other drive is a 3 and out for Purdue. Ever since that opener against Indiana State, Purdue's averaging 118 passing yards per game. These stats are incredibly alarming. And man, I give credit to guys like Devin Mockabee, who's out there running hard every week. This is a real slog right now. If Purdue can come out and give a good effort on defense, great. But ultimately, we've seen Purdue's defense wear down week over week. I'm going to go 35-13 here. I know that's right on the total at 48, and right on the spread at 22. I don't like to do that, but I think that's about right. It just doesn't feel good right now. It doesn't feel good at all. And we're going to see what Purdue does. We're going to see how Purdue comes out. We're going to be able to see just how much Purdue wants to be there. We'll see. I don't have a good feeling about it. I've been wrong countless times before, but I think we'll learn something here on Saturday. How much of a pulse does Purdue have left? A few Q&As here before I touch on basketball to close this thing out. One thing I wanted to address, obviously I've been getting a ton of questions about Ryan Walters' job security and potential new hires for Purdue if Ryan Walters were to be let go. I'm not going to dabble in that. I'm not going to speculate on someone's job. I'm not going to speculate on whether Purdue will make a move or not. I'm not going to speculate on who Purdue could look to replace him if they do make a move. If something happens, don't worry. I will have all of that ready to go, but we're going to wait on that until Purdue makes a move, if it does decide to make a move after this season. What percentage of transfers leave their former school because they aren't really wanted? Is it 75%? I think it really depends where these guys come from. For the most part, guys who transfer out of these Power 4 programs are, they're okay. You have Nick Scortons and Deion Burkses who hop in the portal and are very hot commodities, who are, going to high-profile SEC schools. But for every Nick Scorton, there's a Zion Gunn. There's a Charlie Kenrick. There's a Vince Carpenter. If you don't remember those names, I certainly understand why. They're guys who transferred out of Purdue after a year or two and never really saw the field at Purdue. I don't know where they're at now. You may not remember those names. There are guys like, even like Abdur-Rahman Yassin, who goes down to South Florida. These guys are going down a level to play. I think Dylan Downing's at Miami, Ohio, maybe. That's more like it. They're guys who are going to a level where they can play. It's not that they're not wanted necessarily. I think every coach would like to take depth if they're guys who are, you're able to trot out there if need be. I don't pay enough attention to group of 5 rosters to know how much turnover goes on there, but their better players are absolutely wanted. Look at Corey Stewart. He's a 2-time All-MAC guy who Purdue goes and gets out of the portal. And I'm sure Purdue wasn't the only school interested in him. It really, to me, just depends on where they come from. I know the root of this question comes back to the Georgia guys and the impact that they have or haven't had so far. Purdue bet on these guys being better than what their production and playing time at Georgia indicated. We'll see. It's still early. I've got a question about Nyland Green here. CJ Smith hasn't played. Had a question about him. I have no clue. Guy's dealing with a hamstring, it sounds like. Those can be tricky. CJ Madden got hurt pretty quick. He's been out on the injury report for a while now. I think Ryan Walters said he wasn't sure if he'd be back. And Nylon Morissette has caught a couple touchdowns, but middling impact at best. So I think that's reflective of it. It's like we've said on this podcast before, it's really hard to build out of the portal consistently. You can have successful years, but it's really hard to bank on that year in, year out. Speaking of the portal, someone asked about Hudson Card, whether it was a mistake for Purdue to take him or was it a mistake for him to choose Purdue? It certainly was not a mistake for Purdue to take him. I think Hudson Card is fine. I really, really do not think he's a big part of Purdue's problems. And I know the pass numbers are what they are. I think that's a very layered problem. I think there are a lot of layers to peel back on that onion. But when you look at what Purdue did when it got him, who else was Purdue going to get? The roster was thin. You had Michael Alamo, who hadn't shown you much. You had Brady Allen, who hadn't played. Ricky Collins decommitted. I saw that name come up the other day. You had to go get a portal quarterback, and Hudson Card was a pretty good one. It hasn't worked out well. I don't remember who all was in the mix for Hudson Card other than Illinois. I guess there's a factor of that in this game, and Purdue has a couple of Illinois transfers, Reggie Love, Trey Smith. But I don't remember who the other schools were in the mix for Card. I'm sure he could have found somewhere that he had more team success, but he has gotten to run the show for 2 years. That's got to help. He's at least been able to start every game except for the Northwestern game last year, and he has played a lot of football. I don't think it's worked the way either side had hoped, but unfortunately, that happens in this sport a lot. As I said, we got a Nyland Green question here, and just what's the deal with Nyland Green? Obviously a rough start, a really rough start. The Pro Football Focus grades are not kind to him. He's been flagged for 4 or 5 pass interference penalties, and he's stacked up some missed tackles. I think those both kind of add up after you miss a lot of camp, when you're not practicing, when you're limited in practice. The part of college football that's hard is it's not like the NFL where you get true availability reports. NFL, I mean, I can go Bears PR on Twitter, and I can see who practiced for the Bears every day. If someone was limited, if someone was out, if someone was a full participant. We don't get that in college sports. All we get from the Big Ten is whether someone's out or questionable, or if they're in. That's it. And you get that 2 hours before kickoff. So how long was Nyland Green easing back into things before he played? I have no clue. I really have no clue, and that's what makes it hard. Someday, we're going to get to that point, I think, where there are very real availability reports coming out during the week, especially when you look at what gambling has done to the sport. You look at how much speculation there are on players being out and things like that. But for right now, I chalk some of it up to that. And also, Nyland Green didn't play a ton at Georgia, and he's a senior now. I think he has 2 years of eligibility, but that's a lot of time without getting a ton of live game reps. Practice helps, and you're certainly practicing against high-level players. If he's on scout team defense, he's covering Ladd McConkey and shadowing Brock Bowers and things like that last year. But it's different when it's not a game. All right, I wanted to turn the page here to some Purdue basketball thoughts because Big Ten Media Day was last week, and lots of content coming out from there. I know Brian Newbert did an awesome job with coverage on that. CBS Sports, Gary Parrish, Matt Norlander had a ton of stuff there. A few thoughts, because I think half of you are very ready for this to pretty much become a basketball show. Purdue getting picked to win the league in the preseason really stands out. I don't like doing the whole nobody respects Purdue thing. I'm not going to go all Kirby Smart and say that everyone's picking Purdue to stink, but I remember a lot of years where Purdue would lose a key contributor and be projected to fall off quite a bit. Caleb Swanigan left, and I don't remember expectations being super high for that Vince Edwards, Dakota Mathias, PJ, Isaac Haas team the next year that ultimately didn't win the Big Ten. It finished third, but it was a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. It was 15-3 in the league, I think. I mean, it was really good. The year after that, again, a projected drop-off, and Purdue started off slow, but wins the Big Ten, makes the Elite Eight. The year after that, they were right, but Jaden Ivey, Travion Williams leave. Purdue's projected to fall off quite a bit. Purdue wins the Big Ten by 3 games, 1 seed in the tournament. Purdue returns a very nice core in Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Renn. That's a really good place to start. Those are your 3 centerpiece players. You factor in Cam Heide and Miles Colvin taking on bigger roles after they showed some nice things. You have a couple of young big guys. We'll see what they can bring. Some young guards, CJ Cox, Jakari Harris. If I had to vote on this, I would have Purdue winning the Big Ten right now. Purdue is the most proven team coming back, just in terms of returning pieces. This is really difficult, though, with the portal. You look at Indiana, who brought in several high-profile transfers. How does that mesh? What does that look like? You could argue the ceiling there is pretty high. Same at Illinois. Illinois gets like 2 or 3 players back from last year's team. Whole new look. Again, same deal. UCLA is getting some love. I know nothing about UCLA basketball. Hand up, that's on me. Didn't follow the Pac-12 all that closely, and UCLA wasn't good last year. So I think it would have been easy for voters to look past Purdue and justify sliding Purdue down, because to be fair, Purdue did lose Zach Edey. Purdue lost its all-time leading scorer. Purdue lost the first guy in 40 years to win back-to-back National Player of the Year awards. You lose Mason Gillis, you lose Lance Jones, you lose Ethan Morton. I mean, that's a lot to lose. It's hard. I don't know who's going to be good in the league. So Purdue gets the benefit of the doubt there. And it kind of does too with Braden Smith being picked the preseason player of the year in the Big Ten. Again, I would have selected him. If I had a vote, he's my pick, but I don't know who else to look at. I mean, Peyton Sandford's been around a while. He's a really good player. Is he a Big Ten player of the year? I don't think so. Some of these transfers, we'll see how they look. Who gets all the touches at Indiana? How about Illinois? Does someone break out there? Michigan? I don't know. Michigan State, you never count Tom Izzo out. A remarkable rise for Braden Smith, though. Never lose sight of that. This was a guy who didn't have any other high major offers. He has started every game, right, over the last 2 years. I think he started that game in the Big Ten tournament against Wisconsin, I think. He's been unbelievable for Purdue. He's well on his way to having his name in the rafters at Mackey Arena. He's already kind of a program legend. Fans love him. Now he's got the beard and everything. Remarkable rise for him. I wouldn't be surprised to see Trey Kaufman-Renn or Fletcher Lawyer get some all-conference consideration at the end of the year. What's kind of hard, in the preseason, it's a 10-team all-conference team, or 10-player all-conference team. At the end of the season, it's 3 5-man teams. But now you have 18 teams. I mean, the math gets really tight there to have multiple guys on all Big Ten teams. So it'll still happen. I mean, teams will get 2 or 3 guys on, but it changes what it is when you have a conference this big, because there are going to be guys who, the old quote, even the worst team in the league has to have a leading scorer. They're still going to have good players. I mean, Minnesota's projected to be pretty poor this year, and Dawson Garcia is still getting preseason all-conference nod, and he's very good. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But, this is a program getting respect. This is a program that has kind of officially risen to the spot where it seems like people consider it the best program in the Big Ten. I know Michigan State held that seat for the better part of the last 30 years, but I think Purdue's kind of there right now. We'll see what Michigan State does this year, but Purdue's really done a nice job here over the last 10 years. Purdue's getting some respect. Purdue's getting some national attention, and we'll see what happens. Looks like they're about to sell out every game at Mackey Arena again this year. There are tons of high-profile games, lots of Peacock games. I'm sure people are going to love that. But we're closing in on another season here, and there's a lot to like about where Purdue is at. The full basketball preview episode, probably going to be about an hour long, will drop around Purdue's bye week. I don't know if I'll do it, during the bye week itself or on the Monday following. We'll see if there's any other news to record a separate podcast about that week. But we'll play it by ear. You can expect that podcast coming out here in a couple of weeks. But that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for spending time with me. I know it's not been a fun Purdue football season so far. The last month has been really rough, to put it mildly, but I appreciate those of you who listen. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. You can follow the show on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Always send in questions there, or boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. I will be back Sunday after the Purdue-Illinois game. We will see what things look like. If you're traveling to Champaign, safe travels, enjoy the game. I will talk to you on Sunday. Take care. This episode was brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I want to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me at jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com, and let's protect you from life's everyday risks.